we will begin our quarterly Xero webinar. So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our quarterly Back to Basics Xero webinar. I know you're all really, really busy, so we do appreciate you taking the time to join us. I say this every time, but it means a lot, and I hope you get what you need from these webinars. For those that you don't know me, my name is Lee Simonet. I'm an Associate Director in the Healthcare team here at Forvis Mazars. I'm joined, as always, by my colleague, Kelsey Ross, and again, she will shortly introduce herself and begin the webinar. Just a little bit of background about us here in the healthcare team at Forvis Mazars. We're a specialist GP kind of team. We look after over 350 GP practices across England, Scotland and Wales, as well as federations, primary care networks, medical practitioners. We're a member of ASMA as well. So yeah, we've got a lot of experience kind of in this field. The webinar today is about Xero. Basically, it's a hints and tips webinar about how we can use Xero, some of the kind of intricacies that come with it, and things that you can do to make your life a little bit easier and a little bit quicker. Please feel free to pop questions into the chat as we go. We will try to answer as many as we can as we do go along. If I'm presenting, then Kelsey will answer, and vice versa. There will be some time for Q&A at the end. So again, please feel free to pop some questions in there. Also, if I could ask a favour of you all, please, any feedback or any ideas on future content for webinars, we're always looking for ideas. At the end of the day, we want this to benefit you. So if there's areas that you feel that we could be touching on that we maybe don't, please pop that in, and we'll take that back. I know we've done a webinar in the past on reports, and we're probably going to do another one on them. So things like that, as I say, we're always looking for ideas. The webinar will be recorded, so if you can't make the full duration, then the recording will be available. And also, we are now famous YouTubers, so you can find us on YouTube and get our viewing figures up to a hefty 20 to 25. So that'd be nice. With that, though, I'm going to hand over to Kelsey, who's going to get us started with our webinar, and I will then jump in halfway through. So thank you, Kelsey. Over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Lee, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So what we've got on the screen here is just our agenda for what we're going to run through this morning. So I'm going to cover the bank feeds, bank reconciliations, bank rules, and the chart of accounts, and just another few hints and tips along the way. I'm then going to pass over to Lee, who's going to cover the invoicing function of Xero, including repeat invoicing, bills, and how to get your bills from your emails into Xero, and then how to attach paperwork. As Lee says, that we then have some time for a Q&A. So if there's any questions or anything you want us to go over again, then please just put in the chat, and we're happy to then do so. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to share my screen, and then we can then start the demonstration for this morning. Hopefully you will be able to see my screen. So what we've got here is our Xero dashboard, which is essentially just your Xero homepage when you log into Xero. So I've got a few different things on my homepage. I've got a couple of different bank accounts. I've then got an accounts watch list, which I will come back to towards the end of my session. We've then got an invoices section and a bills section, which Lee will cover a little bit later on. So for me, the main benefit of Xero are the Xero bank feeds. So what this means is you can link your online banking into Xero so that your transactions link automatically from your bank into Xero, so there's no more manually entering those transactions, meaning that there is no risk of transposition errors, etc. So to link the bank feeds, you would have your bank account set up, and then you would then click Get Bank Feeds. What this does is this will then take you to log on to your online banking function. So all you would do here is just agree and log into your bank. And then from here, it's then step-by-step instructions of how to link the bank feeds. Once they've linked, it then just means your transactions will flow from your bank into Xero. So like I say, you're no longer having to manually enter these transactions, just saving you a little bit of time when it comes to doing the monthly bookkeeping. So with the bank feeds, these do need to be renewed every 90 days, and that is just for security purposes, just to make sure that you're happy that your secure information from your bank is still flowing through to Xero. And when these are about to expire, you will get a little notification down here just saying your bank feeds are about to expire. Would you like to continue these? You would then just click this button that would say renew bank feeds, and then they would just refresh and keep flowing through. If, however, you were on holiday or you just hadn't logged into Xero and you missed the renewals section, you would just click here where it's got the three little buttons. And then where mine says get bank feeds, this would say renew or refresh bank feeds. You would click that, and then your bank feeds would then just start again from when they last stopped. Now, if you are ever having issues with your bank feeds, if maybe the connection's broken or something along those lines, what you would do, again, three little buttons, you would then disconnect your bank feeds. So it would say disconnect bank feeds. You would click that, and then you would then refresh your page, come back to your three little dots, and then get bank feeds again and again. This would then just renew the connection for your bank feeds, and then it would just start flowing through automatically again. The bank feeds are available for majority of UK banks, but Xero does have an extensive list of banks that are available for online bank feeds. On the website, they also let you know if there are any known issues with banking feeds. So if maybe Bank of Scotland are doing some updates and the banking function online is down, it would say, we know there's a known issue, we expect this to be fixed in 2 to 3 days, etc. So if you are having issues, I would go and check the Xero website, and then they would let you know if it is a banking issue or maybe it's something, like I say, where you would go disconnect your feeds and then reconnect them again. So once we've got our bank feeds all set up, we would then start to reconcile our items. So I'm just going to click here where it says reconcile 24 items. This then opens up here. So what I've got here is my reconcile tab. And then down the left-hand side is just how is your bank statement essentially. So if you opened up your online banking, look down your statement, these would then be matching. And then down the right-hand side is how we reconcile them. So for this first one, it is a check, and then the next one is NSS income. Now I'm going to come back to these in a little bit later on, and we will then touch more on the health board income in more detail. So the first one I'm going to reconcile is this trans. You can, as you would click transfer, where it was from or to. So I know this is from the savings account. I would click, I would then work my way down my bank account and then reconcile each transaction. So my next one is for the accountancy fee. So I've put in Forbes Massage here because that's who it is. My what is accountancy fee. So I would then just start typing accountancy. It would then start bringing up everything in my chart of accounts. I can then put a description. However, I know this is quite self-explanatory, so I'm not going to bother doing that. And then press OK, and then that's that one reconciled. Now, what I do want to point out is if I scroll to the bottom of my page, there is a little box here that says suggest previous entries. So I'm going to tick this. And then what will happen is things I have previously coded before are now shown. So again, it then just means that it saves you that little bit of time because you're not needing to second guess where you've previously coded things. So I can then see here, I have my MDGS, which I've previously posted to medical subscriptions, Simon Jersey, which went to staff uniforms, one was medical that I put to medical supplies, etc. Now, with my MDGS, because it is going to be a monthly direct debit, what I'm actually going to do for this one is set up a bank rule. Now, to do this, you go Options, Create Bank Rule, and then it will then open up a new page. From here, it's got a couple of conditions that you then need to apply. So the first one, it says apply a bank rule to any of the following conditions or all of the following conditions. So I'm going to say all of the following conditions. I've then got my description equals MDDUS. Now, what I'm wanting to do here is where my condition says equals, I want to change this to contains. And the reason is because on most bank statements, there'll then be a series of numbers after the description. So if these numbers change, if this still said equals, then the bank rule won't apply because the numbers have changed and it wouldn't equal this exactly. So if I change this to contains, I would then just delete the series of numbers after it says MDDS. It would then pick up this every time it comes through the bank. Going to set my contact as MDDS here. And then down at the allocate line items, description, again, quite self-explanatory. I'm just going to put MDDS here. My account, I'm going to want to post this to medical subscriptions. So this has previously been put into our chart of accounts. Tax rate, as long as you're not a VAT registered practice, you would just have this as no VAT. And then I'm wanting to set this within my current account, and then I'm happy for the name of the rule just to be MDDS. I'm going to save this. And then what this means is when my MDDS comes through the bank account, it's automatically going to apply this rule. Now, if I didn't want the rule to apply, I would just simply say, don't apply the rule, and then I can post it somewhere else. But I'm happy that MDDS should go to medical subscriptions, and then I could then just press OK. So the next one, I've got a Simon jersey. So again, I've previously posted this. I'm happy that it still goes to staff uniforms. Yep. I would then go to add details if I had an invoice that I want to attach to this. And there's a couple of different ways you can do this. So you can drag and drop an item in. So if you've got two screens or whatever, you can open up your documents, drag and drop it in. You could go to the little bit of paper here, add from file library or upload from files. If you upload from files, this will just open up the files within your laptop, computer. And then if you then go from upload from file library, which I'll show you towards the end of the session, this will then open up the file library within Xero. You can then find the invoice you're looking for, add it here, and then you've then got a little bit of a one here at a little bit of paper, and then you can then open up your invoice as well. So your invoice would then be there. What I would do is I'm happy with that. I would just save my transaction and then go to reconcile. Okay. So I'll go back up to the NSS income one. So again, a couple of different ways in how you can reconcile this. There is repeating invoices, which we will show. You can post it just as the one code and then attach your health board statement, or you can break it down within the bank reconcile page. If you were going to break it down within here, all you would do is you'd go add details and then simply just start breaking it down within these boxes here. So you would change your description. So this would change to global sum. Your quantity would be 1, and then you would just change your unit price to how much the global sum you had received for that month was. So if it's £100,000, for example, and then here I would then just put this to the global sum code. Again, keeping as no VAT, and then I would then just work my way down the health board statement until the balance at here that was received matches my total balance. If you are doing it this way, then what you need to be aware of is when you get to the deductions part of the health board statement, so your levies and your superannuations, etc., these need to go in as negatives. So if we had the levies, again, quantity is 1, and then this would then go in as a negative. Okay, so then that then brings it down. And then here again, I would then just look for my levies code. So this will then come back into why it's important to have the correct chart of accounts within Xero if you are breaking down your monthly health board statement, because Xero obviously isn't built for medical practices. Chart of accounts is really important. So during your receive, you would then just save your transaction and then reconcile that. So obviously mine doesn't match at the moment, but I'm just going to cancel off this just now. The one above this, so the checks that I've got coming in, how to match these off. If you're using your Xero for invoicing, you would just click here where it says match. And then what this does is this shows me all of my outstanding invoices that I've got to be matched off. So I would then simply just look and check. I've went green because they match. So what I'm then going to do is press OK. And then that's that one reconciled. This one for legal in general is already green because it's matching an invoice that I have got waiting to be paid. So I would just need to make sure that this legal in general one matches my legal in general invoice that I've got here. For this, it is quite important that the companies that are paying you are using the correct reference, which I know is easier said than done, but it just means that if I would then know that it was invoice 0040 that had been paid. If you've got 4, 5, 6 invoices from legal and general outstanding, it would then just be making sure you're matching off the correct invoice. But if I went to add to find my more details, I can then see I've got all these ones outstanding. So I would just need to, if I knew it was this one, for example, I would then match that off and then press OK and then reconcile that. Okay. So once we have got all of our transactions reconciled, our statement balance and our balance in Xero should match. I would then just always go on and double check your online banking to make sure that these are correct. Obviously, it is IT and things can sometimes go wrong. So if your balance in Xero doesn't match your bank balance from your online banking, I would just go and check a couple of different things. So to check, I would go into my bank statements tab along the top here. And then what I would then do is I would just check my balance and just see when things maybe started to go a little bit off. So I would simply just look round my bank statements and then I would just have a little look. Now, as I'm looking down, I can see, right, okay, things look not too bad. I'm happy with how things are looking. Once I then got to the transaction that I thought, okay, actually, this isn't coming through my bank or it's come through twice, I would simply just click here and then delete it. Okay? Which anything that you do delete can be undeleted. So if I delete these and then I've then looked and thought, actually, no, I shouldn't have done that, I can simply just go back in and restore them. Okay, so anything that you do within Xero can be undone, so it's not a problem. Once your items have been reconciled, they then come to your accounts transactions tab. So if you are unsure, if you're trying to find like an invoice or something, you can search for it. And then here you can then open up your invoice as well. So from picking that little bit of paper, it then opens up my invoice. Okay. I'm now just going to touch upon the petty cash. We're often asked how to get petty cash into Xero, and there are two ways of how you can do this. So I'm going to click into my petty cash. The first way is to manually enter the transactions. So I would just click add new transaction. If it was a amount that you've spent, you just put in as new spend money. If it's money you received, you click new receive money. So I'm just going to go spend money for this demonstration. So the 2 is just the money that you have spent. So if it was for the post office, you would just click here. The date is just the date that you've spent it. And then my description, I'm just going to say it was for stamps. My quantity would be 1, and then my unit price would say £15. I'm then going to post this to postage and stationery. And then I would then save this. Once it's saved, it then sits here, but it's then sat as unreconciled. I would then need to click into where it says post office, go options, and then mark as reconciled. You then get this little warning just saying, are you sure that you're happy to reconcile this because it's not been imported from the bank? So I'm just going to say, yep, happy for that to be marked as reconciled. Now, this is a okay way of doing it if you've not got a lot of transactions. However, I would say to not do it manually and to import a CSV. And to do this, you just go manage account, import a statement. I would then just have this set up as a statement within your laptop somewhere, computer somewhere that you're just adding to, and then just import this either once a month or once a year. And then you can then reconcile it like how you do your bank. So I've got one that I've previously done. So for you, I would download a CSV template and then just have this as your petty cash book for the year. Once you've done it, you can then, like I say, drag and drop in or select a file. So I'm going to select my file, click my petty cash import, go next, and then what this does is it'll say the date, the amount, and then the transactions that I have entered. I'm then just going to press next, and then I'm happy for my input to be completed. And then what this does is it then means I can then reconcile my transactions, like what I do within the bank. So again, here I would just say this was for the post office. And then my what, again, postage and stationery. So then once that's done, I can then press OK, and then I'm just reconciling it. And I think that's just a little bit easier than doing the manual entries. Okay, so next thing I'm just going to show you is the chart of accounts, which I've already touched upon. To find these, you go to accounting along the top and then down to chart of accounts. And then, like I say, Xero is not set up for medical practices. It's made for companies. So the standard chart of accounts within Xero would be turnover, cost of sales, etc. It won't have your global sums and your shingles, flus, etc. So making sure you have the correct chart of accounts is really important to know that you're coding things correctly. Which if you speak to myself or Lee, we're happy to give you some guidance on how to get the correct chart of accounts. So once you've got these all sorted, you can then see here we've got an extensive list. If you have new health income, which sometimes they do just give some random one-off amounts. To create a new code for that, you would just go add new account. So for income, this would just be a revenue code. You would simply just try and find the next available code. So if I say 14, which is available. However, if I said 12, I know that this is not available and it tells me here that 12 is not available. But 14 is. I would then just say what I want my code to be. So I could say this was for flu for over 65s. And then save this. And then it just means that this code would then be available for use. If, however, I was looking through my codes and thought, actually, I've got codes in here that I'm never going to use, I can also go on and delete them or archive them however I wanted, or simply click into them, and I can then just change the name of it as well. From the chart of accounts, this is also how you get your accounts watch list. So if I wanted to keep an eye on my medical supplies, I can simply search up here for medical. This will then show me everything within the medical section. And then I would then say medical supplies. So I'm going to click into it and then say show on dashboard watch list. Press save. Go back to my dashboard. And then here we have here our accounts watch list. So if I'm just wanting to keep a wee eye on my medical supplies and postage and stationery because I think that the costs are creeping up a little bit, I can then have them here on my Xero homepage so that I can see them as and when I log in. Just before I pass on to Lee, I will just quickly show you the files library. So to find this, along the top hand side where it would have your practice name, you would click here. You get this drop down menu. you go Files, and then this is your file library, which you can email into. So each Xero has its own email address here. You would click that, email your invoices in, so your health board statements that get emailed to you. Or like I said, drag and drop in or upload from files. You can then have different folders, etc. So that's me for just now, and I'm going to pass over to Lee.
Thanks, Kelsey. Thanks very much for that. Yeah, just touching on those chart of accounts, as she says, it's really important you get them right. Okay, bear with me. I'm going to share my screen and we'll just go into a little bit of more detail in terms of invoices, etc. So hopefully you can see mine and hear mine. Hear me, I should say. Yeah, excellent. Okay, fantastic. So as Kelsey's shown you, she's gone through the reconciliation and the bank fees, etc., which is key on Xero, and obviously probably one of the main benefits of Xero in terms of saving time is that bank feed. Some of you remember once upon a time when you were entering manually into whatever kind of software package you were using, and then you was trying to search for 50p or 80p if you're anything like me, and yeah, it can become quite time consuming. So the bank feed was a real game changer, I think. And Xero are continually kind of improving their systems. Indeed, there's an update released very, very recently, actually, in terms of your bank reconciliation. And Kelsey touched on earlier, we do see some kind of areas sometimes where there might be a bank feed error issue and your bank statement doesn't match. There is now, Xero have now introduced a little bit of a different way to check that. The way you correct that is exactly what Kelsey was showing you, but there is a slightly different way where you can look at that now. And if you click on your three dots where your bank is, and you go into your reconciliation report, there is now an opportunity for you to actually physically type your bank statement balance in, which was never there previously on Xero. So you pick your date range that you want to look at. So if you're looking at the month end for September or wherever, choose your account, and now you have the opportunity to then type in kind of what was in your bank on that date. So the principle is exactly the same. You need to check your bank, always check your bank against Xero, whether that's weekly or bi-weekly. And if you update that, what the Xero now does, it populates a bit of report, and then it shows you how much you're out by. And then, as Kelsey says, you then need to go into the bank statement tab and find that and try and find the error, delete the error or amend it. But this will take some of you back probably into the old reconciliation days when you were putting figures in and things like that. So it's just a little handy tip to have. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about invoicing and billing if you are using those functionalities on Xero. And in particular, really, the PCSE or the health board statement repeating invoice, which again is a bit of a time saver. Kelsey's shown you how to reconcile that within the general reconciliation page. I'm just going to go into it in a little bit more detail and raise something called a repeating invoice, which is essentially, it gives you a template for your PCSE health board statement every month. So it stops you having to, some of these can be very, very lengthy. If you get in superannuation kind of adjustments and deductions, etc., continually. Again, it saves you having to reinvent the wheel basically every month. Okay, so to do this, what we'll do, we'll go into business, and then we will go into our invoices. So this is our invoices overview. So this will show you everything in terms of your invoice functionality. So it'll show you all your invoices, or you can look by draft, awaiting approval, awaiting payment paid, and repeating. These are the tabs. Okay. Awaiting payment is obviously those invoices you have raised that you have not yet either had the money for or reconciled in Xero. And I'm just going to touch on the repeating and how to raise a repeating invoice. And then I'm going to show you how that will then be approved and then reconciled in Xero against your monthly statement. So to raise a repeating invoice, click into the new invoice tab and click new repeating invoice. This will open the invoice page. You want to repeat the invoice monthly. The invoice date I would usually put in terms of the date that you receive it. I mean, we all know general practice is not like any other business. in fact, in terms of that you'll do your money, you know the work that you've done, and you receive the money in a timely manner. That would be wonderful, and we all know that is not the case. So these are kind of retrospective invoices, if you will, but it helps you reconcile, and it saves you kind of changing and as I say, entering different types of data every month. So the invoice date there, what I would do if you're receiving it in the middle of the month is change that to the middle of the month. And then where it says due, I would basically just say a couple of days after the invoice date, because as I say, it's a retrospective invoice. This isn't going anywhere. This isn't being emailed to anybody. You're not chasing anybody for this. It's purely to help you reconcile a little bit easier. So we'll do that there. The end date is optional. You don't need one really, because you're going to get these. This is your main source of income. You're always going to get that. At this point, it's important to say you want to save this as a draft. And the reason being is if you were to say you want to approve that every month, you're going to be approving the incorrect amount every month, which means you're going to have to edit it before you can match it, which is doable. But I say, well, if you save it as a draft, you can do the editing before you approve it. So you know then you are matching the correct amounts. So I always say save as a draft. You can invoice to somebody like NHS England or Scotland, wherever you are, Wales, and the reference, you could put something like monthly PCSE or whatever that reference might be. You don't have to worry about your branding. As I say, that's not going anywhere. Let's see if my spelling gets any better throughout the webinar. And again, as Kelsey touched on earlier, when you're doing your breakdown within the reconciliation, you then go through. So it might be a good idea to start this if in April with your April statement, and you go down that statement and you will populate all the different descriptions of everything that you are receiving and that you are spending on this, etc. in terms of the information that's on that statement. The quantity will always be 1. And the unit price is up to you. So if your global sum for that quarter is going to remain the same, then by all means, put the figure in and populate the account. However, if that's not the case and you have an enhanced services, for example, let's say something like, I have to spell this, that's right, pneumococcal, for example, you might then want to put a 0 in there, because what you don't want to be doing is continually changing the amounts. So it's entirely up to you. A repeated invoice can be amended at any point. Bear in mind, if that repeated invoice is in the past, then it will be sat there as what you've already done. So you then have to change that. So you go through that, go down your statement, and if you're happy with that, you would then click save. Where that then goes, if we go back to our invoices, it will then sit in repeated invoice. And we can see this here. All right. So for this particular, you might say, right, for this quarter, this is it repeated. Amend that repeated invoice for the following quarter. This is where you go. You go to repeating, simply change the amount of global sum to what that would be for the next quarter. Okay, you can see you've got deductions for drawings, etc., that are going to be consistent. They can stay in there. And then you save. That will update your repeated invoice moving forward. Okay. Okay, and once you've saved that repeated invoice, if you head back to your dashboard, what you will find now whenever you've set that invoice date up, so the 15th of the month, you will see that draft invoice appear here on your dashboard. That's your cue to go into that draft invoice and edit it to match your actual statement figure. And to do that, click into the draft invoice functionality here, open up the month that it relates to, simply go down the invoice itself and edit it. You can add in lines as you go, should you need more lines. And you can also delete rows should you not have any of that income on that particular month. Okay. At this point, once you're happy with that, so this total here should always match the total on your statement, on your PCSE or health board statement. It should always tie into each other. Okay, so it should never be a difference between that. Once you're happy with that, you then click your little drop down and click approve. Okay, once you've approved it, again, this screen will appear. So if I approve that, You'll have your invoice functionality here. What you can then do also at this point, once it is approved, you can look at adding your actual statement into that as well once it's been approved, and you can either attach the file and upload it, or as Kelsey mentioned earlier, you can drag and drop into here. So I would always attach those statements as well, because it becomes paperless, gives you a trail, an audit trail, and it allows your accountant to be able to see that information. You know, gone are the days of the big boxes of invoices, etc. Once that's been approved and you've attached that paperwork at that point, if you then head to the dashboard, you will then see your approved payments in awaiting payments. And it's now your job to just basically reconcile that amount. So to do that, we click into the reconcile tab on Xero here. Now, in England, I know there are issues sometimes with your PCSE statement where you will receive two amounts of money relating to one invoice. Okay. You'll have the NHS, the local NHS, and then you'll have NHS England. These two figures should match the invoice that you have raised. And to deal with them in Xero, really simply, all you do is click into find and match. So find your two figures that have hit the bank and hit Xero from the bank. Click find and match. Go and find the invoice, the total invoice that it relates to. So in this case, it's my January one. Now you can see that that's a little bit more than that, but that's fine, because if you think about it, what you've done in real terms is you've raised an invoice for a certain amount and you've been paid in two installments. Okay. So find that figure, tick the box. You can then get the option to split that invoice. Click on split and say, okay, of the total invoice raised, I want to knock off this amount of money, which Xero was kind of showing you anyway, because that's what's hit your bank. Click split, click OK, and click confirm. What you are then left with is the second amount of money. If you then go back to find and match, you should be left with that amount of money from the invoice that you raised. So you can see these two figures match each other. You tick your box, you click OK, and you click confirm. And that is how you reconcile them. So it's really simple. Okay. So let me just recap ever so slightly on that one. You create your repeated invoice. That will then repeat every month as a draft invoice. When you get your PCSE statement or your health board statement on that date, open the draft invoice, edit it to match, approve it, attach the paperwork, go into reconcile and match the two amounts to the total invoice. Okay. Once you've done one, it becomes second nature, and it does run really smoothly, and it enables you to not have to think about breaking that down consistently. Okay. And that's the repeated invoice functionality. A basic sales invoice, again, you can do from here. You click into sales invoice. Plenty of functionality in here if you are emailing or if you're using this to kind of for room rent or private work or anything like that, then I would recommend setting up a full kind of invoice template, and you can find that under your practice name, in settings and invoice settings. I would use the standard template that Xero gives you, and there's an edit button. Just click on edit and edit that template. And then what you can do is raise invoices, and those invoices can then kind of be approved and emailed out to people. Again, you don't have to do that. You might not want to use Xero to email them out, but again, that invoice can sit there, and it just enables you to track your income ever so slightly. I know it's difficult because you've still got to make your claims to different health boards and different areas. You know, you can't get away from that really, but it does enable you to try and track some of this, some of your income a little bit better. Obviously, not every income amount is going to be reconciled, is going to have an invoice, but it still needs reconciling. And as Kelsey went through earlier, continue to use the reconciliation functionality in here and posting that income where it needs to go. If it's PPA income or anything like that, please use that functionality. You do have to reconcile all of your items. But give the repeated invoice a go on your big statements. It may save you quite a bit of time. Okay. The other area I wanted to look at was the bills. So some of you may be using Xero to raise and track your bills and know when your bill payments have to go. And that again is a time-saving function and really simple. The new bill, just a single bill, again, you can do from your dashboard, click in new bill, and it's just a one-off bill. Pretty self-explanatory. Where's it from? Description, the quantity, unit price, and post that where it needs to go. And again, if you do have an invoice for that, you can drag and drop it and attach it in here and then approve. Any bill or invoice that you do raise will need approving before you can match it on Xero. It will not let you match anything if it's sat in draft or awaiting approval. It needs to be approved. Okay, but Xero has a couple of quicker ways to be able to raise bills as well. So again, if I go into business and I go into bills to pay, there is the automate bill entry option. So again, another time saver. If you click the automate bill entry, what you have here is email bills to Xero and a unique email address for your license. What this essentially means is if you're getting an invoice from a supplier, whether that be Williams or whoever, and they attach the invoice in the email, so you've got an attached invoice within that email, forward that email to this unique address. Xero will take the invoice out and it will create a draft invoice based on the information that it can extrapolate from the invoice within the initial email. So you will have to go into draft once you've done that, open the bill up and just make some minor adjustments. You might have to just check the amount. You will need to post it where it needs to go. So if it needs to go to stationery or drugs or anything like that. But what it does, the bill is created for you. The paperwork will be attached for you. It's just a little tweak. And then you obviously, again, as I've just said, you approve that bill. And once that bill's approved, again, on your dashboard, it will sit in awaiting payment. Simply, again, go into reconcile. If it's a one-off payment and a one-off amount, Xero will match them up in green for you. If it's not, you use the find and match. You've got an example here, for example, for an invoice, it's a one-off amount. Those correct, Xero's matched in green. We're happy with that. We click OK. If it's a bill, it'll be an expense amount. And again, it would be in green. And if not, find and match. So the principle is exactly the same with an invoice and bill in terms of reconciliation. There is another functionality that Xero brought out, and it's fairly recent. And that is to be able to pay your suppliers through Xero. Now, historically, it's been very difficult for GP practice to be able to do that because you had to have a BACS file and you had to have the BACS facility within your bank. Now, a lot of banks probably wouldn't give you the BACS functionality because your revenue, your turnover, wasn't high enough, and you would have to pay quite a lot of money to get that set up, and it was just not worth it. But if you did, and you was in that position, then there was an ability to be able to raise your bills, batch them together, and then export a CSV and then import into your bank. However, Xero have simplified that process. Now, I must say before I go, there is a cost to that. So it's 20p a bill as it currently stands. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to show you where to have a look for this. There's a little video explaining how this works, and it may well be worth just having a look if you feel as a practice it will benefit you. So again, go into business, go into bills to pay. And what you've got here is something called set up direct bill payments. Okay, and what this enables you to do, as I say, there's a little video here explaining what it does, and basically it gives you your pricing. So if you're on the new Xero Grow license, you will get 5 bills per month, and then a further 20p. So you need to have a look at that again. And this video is really, it does explain quite a lot. So I would recommend you looking and watching that video. I'll go through it briefly. What it means. Essentially, what it means is, if you've got your contacts set up on Xero and you have a bank feed, bank feeds work through something called open banking. Now, this is enabling you to share bank data safely with lots of different people. You can do it on reward cards and things like that now to earn points. And what Xero's basically done is you can raise your bills on Xero as you normally would. You can group them together, and then you can pay them through open banking. So if you've got that kind of set up and your contacts set up and emails and their banking details, you can directly pay them through Xero. And the security kind of steps in that in terms of email verification and two-step authentication and that kind of thing. So it's quite robust in terms of security. But please, if you feel like that's something you're interested in, then have a look at that video. It is quite informative. And as I say, it may, if you are using bills, it will save you time. However, it may cost you. So work, kind of weigh that up within your own practice. So yeah, in terms of the invoices and bills, it is a whistle-stop tour, and that's kind of where I wanted to sit with that. What I would say is, if you do need any help or anything like that, then there is, always reach out to us. There's training packages available and things like that. Get your chart of accounts ready. Make sure that that's robust and make sure that it's accurate. It's really important that you do that. But have a play with Xero. It's really intuitive, really user friendly, and as long as you're reconciling these items and you're getting these statement and balancing Xero to match, then you're on the right lines. And again, use your watch list as Kelsey showed you earlier, and go through your invoices and your bills. Okay, so that's really all I wanted to kind of cover today. We will be having another webinar probably early in the new year. I've had some ideas from you guys in terms of content, so thank you so much for putting that out there for us. We're always looking for ideas, as I said earlier. So there should be another one early in the new year. Have a look on YouTube for some of the old ones. If you search for Back to Basics Xero, you will find some of our other webinars that Kelsey and I have done in the past. And I think that's probably where we'll wrap that up today. So thank you so much for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.